Hello and good morning to you. Um, this is going to be video 733, as you can tell, coming from this wonderful up the nose shot from my living room. Uh, it is February 2nd, no, 20th, excuse me. It's 8:08 in the morning. And I came out to have my cup of coffee, and my sons usually come up and nuzzle against me, and that was nice. They do that every day. I'm really appreciative of that because it's love. And I even will go so far as to say unconditional love, but I do feed them, and they do appreciate that. So maybe there is a bit of, hey, we love you. Thank you for feeding us. Please feed us again. And I don't really have a title for what this is going to be about, but I just want to talk a little bit about my experience today. Which you're like, oh my gosh, it's like early in the morning. What could possibly happen to you? And it, I guess I'll explain what happened, and we'll talk about it. Um, Sat down, kitty love, happy, joy, thinking about my day. Second sip, third sip of coffee, and then I kind of went through Facebook. And a friend of mine had posted about how apparently a family member had died, and they talked about how this family member really impacted their life and different things this family member had gone out of their way to be integrated to my friend. And unfortunately, that family member had passed, and the family member's immediate family had told my friend that she wasn't welcome there because she's trans. And, that really made me very sad. Made me sad for my friend. And I don't want to take away from that's her thing, and I express my condolence, my sadness for her and support. And in my experience, I was not allowed to go to my sister's. My sister had said that I was an embarrassment to her, and so she cut me out of her life totally. But I don't want to detract from my friend's situation because that's really deep. And that's a terrible thing that when we grieve for someone, we want to remember them, we want to go to their funeral. And I'm not really big on going to funerals, I'll be honest with you, but if it was someone that I really cared about and I had a connection with, and I haven't, to be honest, I haven't lost anyone yet, thank goodness. My parents are still alive, and I haven't had anyone really close to me die yet that I could go to, you know. Uh, but I can only imagine the emotion that they're going through right now. And again, we don't go to a funeral for the people, not necessarily the people around. It's our way of saying goodbye to the person that's passed. So what in the hell difference does it make what the other people think? I'm not here for you. I'm here to say goodbye to so and so. But there's also that sense of community and togetherness, getting a hug and saying, I remember so and so, and I'm so sorry for your loss. I mean, there's a community to it. And I don't think people realize how much damage they do for the living. Here because a group of people want to protect their own sense of reality that's outdated, obviously. And keeping someone at a distance because they're different. They're the other. They're the outsider. It infuriates me. It makes me angry. It makes me sad for my friend. It makes me angry against those people that hurt her. And they probably don't realize what they're doing. Not, if they thought about it and you had a conversation one on one, you might be able to break through some of the ignorance and say, "Don't you understand?" I forget the philosopher maybe it was a poet who said, "Prick me, do I not bleed?" I'm just like you. I'm a human being. I have emotions. I have valid emotions. My sorrow, my grief are valid, and you're preventing me from dealing with it. I mean, it really. I mean, just it's unfair on such a level I can't even fathom. Okay. Um. So that was like the first thing that happened, and then the second thing was another friend of mine, posted about how a trans person they know, every time they get misgendered, they go home and cut themselves. And, so, which I think there's some psychological issues there. But, again, they're being hurt by people around them. And then they're taking that one sense of hurt and translating it into another sense of hurt, a physical, visceral. I'm turning something that is communicative, whatever, into something that is physically visible. We talk about with mental health. One of the problems of mental health is that it's invisible because it's up here, and so they're taking something that's non-corporeal, non-physical, and turning it into physical pain, turning it into seeing my and again, I think there's some issues there to deal with, but why is it that pain? Why do the people around us get to treat us like shit? In the case of my friend in the funeral, and in this other trans person, they get away with it. It's I mean, if you think about it, they shouldn't get away with it, but you know they get away with it. It happens. It's just, and so that was kind of the second thing that happened to me. And then the third thing that happened to me in quick succession was there was a survey about how President Biden was doing, and it was, rate the president on his COVID response, rate the president on his there was two other things, and I'm sorry, my brain is, I'm not remembering, but rate them on the job they're doing. And I'm very happy with President Biden. So A plus, A plus, A plus. I think one of the things may have been social policies, because as you know, President Biden came out and said, "Hey, we're going to treat everybody with respect. It doesn't matter, gay, whatever, trans, non-binary, we're going to treat them with respect." And I said A plus because I think he's doing a good job. This is an opinion poll via Facebook from a news organization, and so probably, countless thousands of people are gonna post to this, and so on Facebook, you know, and somebody went out of their way to, they didn't like my response, okay, and they could have said, F F F minus and left it at that. That was their opinion. I had my opinion. You have your opinion. They have their opinion. Okay, it's a poll. But this person went a step further. They clicked on my Facebook page. And I guess they must have gone through my feed or whatever's visible. And I have, my Facebook is private. You shouldn't be able to go through anything. But they went through my feed and I guess my photo. I don't know how. And they saw I was trans. So then on my post on this poll, they wrote a nasty comment about me being trans and said something about you shouldn't be allowed to go into a bathroom, a woman's bath, men and women's bathroom. And that, I guess, was the straw that broke the camel's back, as it were, in our trilogy of anti-trans. It's like I said, it's 8 o'clock in the morning, 8:08 on a Saturday morning, and I've had three things come up to me. Like I imagine there are people still sleeping and people that haven't had their coffee yet or their breakfast or whatever. And I've had three slaps in my face this morning. And obviously everybody had. Well, I don't want to leave this guy yet. So I wrote back to him. My first inclination was anger, and I wanted to say right back to him. Are you stupid or just an asshole? But I decided I'd take the high road and I'd play stupid. And I wrote back to him. I said, I'm not sure I understand what you're trying to say, And he wrote back, yeah, well, based on your comments, I don't expect you would. And I said, well, I'm trying to understand your point of view. Would you mind elaborating? And, silence. He got his jollies. He scored his points. He thought he was, shit because he insulted and had tried to attack me. And so, I'm an old plaything now, I guess. But I guess the video that I want to make is, again, who gives, when did it become okay? Like I said, in these three instances, so early in the morning, why is it okay to pick on? I mean, in the third case against me, it was abuse, and obviously we're talking through Facebook. I mean, it's kind of like yelling at someone in email. We're removed, if we were in the same room, shit. Let me elaborate on that. I'm 6 foot tall and I weigh 370 pounds. Okay. In my current state, I probably could beat this. I wouldn't beat the living shit out of somebody, but I can be very physically intimidating if I want to be. Okay. And now I'm a sweetheart. I'm a teddy bear. I'm a flower. I'm not violent in any way, shape, or form. But from a physical point of view, I'm gonna guess if this guy was 200 pounds and 5'9", I could press them up against the wall if I was moved towards physical violence or threat of some kind. Okay. But in this day and age, and again, it's not something I would do, but here he is, wherever he is, safe behind his screen. He can say whatever he wants. There's not going to be any repercussions or whatnot. But why is it cool, and why does he get his jollies being mean to a trans person? And in the case of the second, why is it okay to misgender and use the dead name on someone Why is that acceptable? And in the case of the first one, why do people think that they can somehow isolate and protect themselves from the trans? You know what I mean? It's very unsophisticated. It's very childish. It's very antiquated. I might even say, and that is the condition. I mean, that is our reality. And sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me. Only goes so far. That's equally as childish. Nanny nanny boo boo. You know. And I guess the what I'm gonna say is the takeaway is that um, as advanced and as modern as we think we are, we still have a long way to go. And I am not, and this is something that has come to light recently with me is I'm no longer looking for justification. Uh, I'm looking for equity. I'm looking for equality. And I think we're on our way there. But, uh, again, we just have a long way to go. And people, I don't want to second guess what other people are saying or thinking. I guess I'm about to. But, you know, put yourself in, if you can, and I guess you can't, but put yourself in the trans person's shoes. Um, it takes a lot of guts and determination and commitment to accept that, hey, I am of a gender different than the sex I was assigned at birth. And there's a lifetime of pain and sorrow and regret and sorrow, not sorrow, pain, shame, guilt, trying to figure that out. And after years of just pain and suffering and everything, that person one day says, you know what, I can't put this off anymore. I'm trans. I know I'm trans. I've got to do this. And they decide to go through a huge transition that's hellacious in some respects and, of course, glorious in others. And they're doing their best to make things work. They're doing their best to do the best they can with what they got. If they're obviously, if they're younger, their body's going to be more inclined to the changes that happen chemically. If they're older, not so much, and we just accept that and go on with it. But why? Why this? Why does one person decide to make another person's life miserable? And other people, I guess because they're in the majority, accept it. Oh, yeah, that's right. That's right. You know, why does that persist? And I guess it's just part of life, I suppose. I don't know. Um, and I've said this in my posts on Facebook is instead of transgender, put the word Mexican or African American. My grandparents would say colored. Put the colored in there. Okay, that's my grandparents, not me. In the case of my friend in the funeral, they got together and talked and decided they didn't want black people at their funeral. How wrong is that? Extremely. And where we are now, it would be a disgrace. And so maybe 100 years from now, the transgender is going to be just as, well, why would you exclude so and so from that? They're your cousin, they're your uncle, they're your brother, they're your sister. they're your niece. We just got to let time, and understanding and whatnot. In the case of the misgendering or using the dead name again, the simple, when you meet someone and you shake their hand and you say, hello, Mr. Jones, or hello, Mrs. Jones. Again, how easy is it to, if you care about the other person, to use the name they want to be called, the pronouns they want to be called. And again, I think trans is behind us and non-binary is ahead of us. And so we're going to go through a bit of a learning curve. You're going to see somebody and you're going to use their body language and secondary clues to say, okay, that's a guy. And you're going to approach them and say, hello, sir. We have to re-educate ourselves not to do that. And to say hello, by how would you prefer me to address you? Oh, they, them, theirs. Okay. They, them, theirs. That's going to be the next paradigm shift we're going to go through. And in the case of the third one, the guy trying to make me feel terrible about myself. How dare you? Like I said, why would you? That cuts to pain. I'm an old fuck. Okay, I'm 48 years old, although I think I'm 50. My daughter says I'm 48. I don't know, but you would think that my skin is tough enough that I can just shrug that off, and I guess I can. I'm talking about it. But why would you? That's like going up to someone in a wheelchair that they're missing an arm, and making a joke about, I bet you're pretty handy around the house. Where'd you go? Did it cost you an arm and a leg? That degree of, number one, being a jerk, but inappropriateness. Again, we just have a ways to go. But anyway, so that's my 3 quick stories. And like I said, it's not even 9 o'clock yet. And, I think for the cis world, number one, I'm sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. Next week, the House, the Congress is about to do a trans LGBTQ civil rights bill. And there are going to be people who are like, oh, why do they get special treatment? Okay. Well, because there's a need, obviously. Like I said, my 3 tails are every day. So, what I found is, and this is a much bigger thing. I'm sorry, I'm driving there slowly. There are problems in our world, in our society, that don't necessarily affect us. And it's very easily, if you have never experienced discrimination, to say, what discrimination? We don't need to do that because there is no discrimination. Well, you may not have experienced discrimination, but so-and-so has. And so it's very empathetic of you to try to understand it, but it's also very ignorant for you to deny it. And in the same way that, I've heard some people scoff about student loan forgiveness, and it's one of those things, you may not have student loans, but there are other people out there who do that are underwater. And, I remember back in the housing crisis with President Bush, the second one, W, and the mess they got the country in and how terrible it was. And the Obama administration came in and started to fix President Bush's mistakes. And they were talking about helping people their mortgages underwater. You know, we were like, oh yeah, definitely, we want to help these people. But if you were a renter or you had paid your mortgage and you weren't underwater, you'd be like, well, why should our tax dollars be used? You know, that's the danger. And it's the same way with the student loans. You know, you may not have student loans, but there are other people who do. And you just have to kind of be a little compassionate and say, well, if we can help them out, we help them out. But back to the as it relates to me and my life in this channel, you know, here I am of middle age. Obviously, it's the name of the channel. And this shit's still going on. And so that's why we need those protections. You know, that's why we need. It is going to be a thing like my analogy about the colored people. My grandparents, they talk about the colored people. Um, in the same way that today we would not tolerate a whites only restaurant. We wouldn't tolerate that. We need the same thing for trans and LGBTQ and non-binary because it's coming. Non-binary is coming if it's not here already. And, something else too I want to kind of talk about. I think I've kind of made my point or whatever it is. But back to the second story about the person who cuts themselves and, there are people, I was going to say men and women, but see, that's that trap. That's that binary trap. But there are people, some men, some women, some non binary, who we come in all shapes and sizes and voices. And it's such a spectrum. You know that. You're smart enough. You know that. It's a spectrum. And so, how realistic is it to transition and aim for something that, you know what I mean? Like, and I don't, I'm going to catch myself because I have a friend who has a really cool voice that I really like. But, uh, uh, yeah, she just sounds so perfect, and I can't imagine hearing her any differently. But anyway, now that I've stepped into a big pile of shit, um, what I want to say is that people come in all shapes, sizes, and voices, and in many respects, you just got to do the best with what you have. And if you were 6 foot tall, 300 and some odd pounds to begin with, you're not gonna the chances of you being 5'2" little lithy little girl is just not really feasible, is it? I mean, you can lose a bunch of weight, and I guess you could cut your legs off or whatever. And the three stepsisters, they cut their toe off, they cut their heel off to fit in the glass slipper. But just to be very realistic as to, and we can be very accepting of our own limitations, but we also have to interface with society that definitely creates a paragon, and creates this ideal woman, ideal man, and I think again, to understand that we are not going to fit that, and just to say, oh, if I have this surgery, if I have this corrective surgery, if I have this surgery, if I have this operation, if I have this procedure, if I go to training and voice training and I do this, that, and the other, obviously be happy with yourself. But I would just question, who are you trying to appease? Are you trying to appease the people around you? Are you trying to appease yourself and to love yourself? And, cis people have problems, whether they think they're too fat, too skinny, they don't sound right. So again, in the end, it's it's whatever you think is right. That's why I used to say, I wish you the best of luck in becoming your authentic self as you define it. Again, I've seen too many trans women go through the process and then get angry and upset because they are not meeting up to someone else's expectation of what they are, whether it be physically or how they sound. And at some point, I think you just got to say, fuck it. This is what I got. This is who I am. And it may not be, what exactly I want, but this is what I got, and it's time to live my life with what I have, you know. And if someone else can't accept it, that's their problem, not mine. So, anyway, back to my three quick stories. So, I'm not sure if there's a point other than just to say, hey, walk a mile in my shoes and experience what I felt and experience what here in 2021, the shit that we're still, got all going on. And maybe it gives you a little bit of understanding as to what it's like, and like I said here, I feel like um in some ways I'm like a normal person and beyond a lot of the shit, but we're not. It can still creep up and try to knock us down. So we move on. All right. Till next time. Bye bye. Good luck.